asking you all to reflect on a time in your lives when someone said to you, "You can't do it," or "That's impossible." Perhaps as a parent, a teacher, a colleague, or a well-meaning friend. How did it make you feel? Scared, defeated, frustrated, maybe lost? Or like me, did it ignite a passion deep inside you, a fierce determination to prove them all wrong, igniting a flame fueling success, overcoming obstacles, barriers, failures, and all of the naysayers? I'm Dr. Marjorie Dixon, and it's an honor to be here with you today. As a Black female doctor and a member of the LGBTQSI+ community, I have often been told that certain things are just plainly impossible. My whole life and career, I faced obstacles and barriers. But let me tell you, there's nothing that fuels me more than to prove everybody wrong, and especially if they tell me that I can't, or a simple dogmatic no for no good reason, or that's impossible. So my journey began, as her, always something to say, as a young Anglophone Protestant and one of only 2 Black children in a French public Catholic school. So needless to say, I didn't fit in any box. And though I immediately knew that I stood out, there was something inside that little idealistic, awkward girl. And in my analytical assessment of circumstance, I decided to flip things on their head. So instead of internalizing what my differences were as weakness or deficiency, I decided to see it as strength and channel it into my superpower. So with grit and determination, I went on to secure a scholarship to a top-tier Montreal girls' school, and that catapulted my educational journey. But when I switched from my French to my English school, one of the educators there told me that, I would not be proficient in this new educational environment. And they said that to the kid. But who cares? I was idealistic, and I believed in myself. And so I decided I'm going to prove that lady wrong. And so I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to get another scholarship, which I did. The Accelerated Entry Program into McGill University's Faculty of Medicine. Anyway, so I was still a little bit older, but I was still awkward, and I still perceived barriers that people didn't necessarily see. But I worked hard, and I was still bound and determined to prove them wrong. So I ended up ranking in the top 3 of my medical school class in 1997 as one of only 2 Black students in a class of 123. Watch me go. And I want you to look at that hairdo. You see that? That's in the 90s. It was the Rachel Flip from Friends. I worked almost as hard at that hairdo for that picture as I did during that school. So in my chosen field of medicine, which was women's health, I found it peculiar that my mentors, I was surrounded by older white men who were lovely, but again, it felt different. Because it was women's health, I felt that it should be dominated by women, and maybe a couple women that looked like me. Didn't matter, I kept trucking along. And I finished my residency in obstetrics and gynecology at the University of Toronto. And then I went on to finish my fellowship in reproductive endocrinology and infertility at the University of Vermont in the US. And then I ended up starting my own clinics. So that's the background of how I became Dr. Marjorie Dixon, CEO, founder, and medical director of a group of fertility clinics called Innova, and your friends in fertility. But I've seen a lot of obstacles and barriers through my career. But it's those very obstacles and barriers, and especially all those naysayers, that have fueled my success. So today, I'd like you to consider how you can use science or a scientific approach to life, an analytical approach to your problems, to reach your best possible outcomes in life and in your careers, regardless of your industry, your career, or the magnitude of your perceived challenges. And then, I want us to looking at data and how science you do it. So you have hypotheses, you test them rigorously, and you prove or disprove with a lot of perseverance and work and grit so that you can bust through all of the boundaries that you might set for yourself and that others might set for you as well. So, as I began in my career, I had a medical degree, but I had no formal training in business or entrepreneurship. I was still that idealistic little awkward girl that was bound and determined to be the best. So I started to work in a Toronto fertility clinic. Their lack of inclusivity and failure to see all of their patients as core to their practice actually conflicted with my values. And I had an idea. I felt like I was going to have to open my own fertility clinic. And it was going to be all-inclusive, not like a holiday dance out. I mean, all-inclusive that everyone could access care, regardless of their age, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their geography, their ethnicity, their race, their religion. All could access best-in-class care in an equitable way. Fairly lofty, I was just out of school. At this point in my life, I had to carefully consider the pros and cons of such a decision. So I made my pro and con list, and I did just that. And I decided to go for it. So our patient-centered approach and our humanized approach to care actually brought me and my team success early. We had true love and devotion for our patients ushering through their pathway to parenthood. And this humanized approach also included making the patient have agency in their care and be involved in their care, which was a revolutionary concept at that time. So our popularity grew. We had referrals pouring in, and the practice grew. And so I had to do something. So I ended up hiring nurses and doctors, an operations manager. I brought in an electronic medical record, which you think is entertaining. It was the year 2007, so it's a long time ago. And we were on our way. Well, I witnessed my practice's exponential growth. And I immediately knew that I needed to capitalize on that growth and accelerate it because it was a tremendous opportunity. And that little awkward girl had another idea. Not only did I want to have the fertility clinics where everyone could access care in an equitable way, but I wanted to build an IVF lab. An in vitro fertilization laboratory, but it was going to be like a spaceship. Not a standard one, not like one that existed in Canada. I was going to bring in experts from the UK and from Europe and from the US. It would be best-in-class lab. It would set the standard. Actually, it would yield exceptional results, making everybody else look bad. And the patients would be well served, along with this humanized approach. Well, building and scaling and growing and branding an IVF lab was nothing that I had any acumen. And I knew that I needed to be strategic and focused in order to get to my goals. I call this a fork in the road moment of my life. Because that little awkward girl had done her research. I had talked to experts. I had leaned on people who had been where I wanted to be. I had looked at all the data. I was careful and contrived in my execution. I also knew that I needed to be prepared for a little discomfort and risk, a lot of discomfort and risk. So remember I said I had no formal training in business or entrepreneurship. I still had to write a business plan. So I toiled and I labored and I poured over this business plan, leveraging absolutely everything that I had. And I went for it. I walked into my bank at the time with my business plan for fertility. And I expected them to be supportive of me because they'd always been supportive of all of my business ventures to date, so they should have my back. Well, what transpired was quite the opposite. They rejected me and my plan that day. Sorry, Marjorie. It's just too risky. Simple as that. At first, I was deflated. Like, but then I found my voice. You're going to live to regret that decision, I said to the guy sitting across me. He's like, who is this lady? I really did say that. Then I understood that I had to retool, like science, my materials and methods, decrease the perceived risk, and go back to the drawing board. So I did. And I walked into my second bank with my newly retooled pitch for no fertility, only to be rejected once more. Well, at this stage, I'm bound and determined, right? I believed in my plan, I had done the research, I gathered my data, I talked to experts, I leaned on my mentors, I did everything that I needed to do. And I had more belief in my plan and the diligent work that I had put into it that I feared the rejection and failure if it didn't go through. So then, I did it again. I retooled my plan, I redid my materials and methods, I went back like science with all this new data, and went to the third bank. And guess what? RBC took a chance on me and my business that day. And they agreed to fund the capital to build an fertility spaceship and an IVF lab. And you know what? I'm sure that it's paid off in dividends that they didn't even expect at the time, and I'm still a proud member of RBC today. And so I think that it's important for me to impart to you that much as this is a great story, there were times where building and scaling and growing an IVF laboratory affiliated with patient-centered clinics was completely overwhelming. I felt sometimes like I was going to die. But I leaned on my mentors. And one of them said to me, Marjorie, the sun will rise and set every single day. No matter what, you've laid the best laid plans. You've done the work. Believe in yourself. And you know what? That's a mantra I live by today. And now if you think about science and hypotheses testing. A hypothesis is an idea that you have. You test it rigorously, and you prove it or you disprove it. Then you share your data or you don't if it's intellectual property, let's just say. Well, other people will have hypotheses about your great hypothesis. For example, oh, Marjorie, I admire your idealism, but you're going to have a hard time getting that idea to fly. Or, even better, how many children do you have? 3? That's a lot of kids. Are you sure? Are you sure you want to build an IVF lab? Because your babies need you. And an IVF lab is a lot of responsibility. I have a better idea. Why don't you allow us? We'll build the IVF lab for you. And all you have to do is come to work. Easy peasy. No muss. But those are just hypotheses. It's all of your job to critically appraise your situation. Use the tools that you have in your toolkit to figure out whether your big hypothesis is worth it. And in the end, when you're thinking about hypothesis and a hypothesis testing, you will sometimes have to take the path less traveled and be okay with it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about choices, taking a path less traveled. Critical choices and lifelong learning are 2 big keys to success. In fact, the choices that you make every single day will determine the trajectory of your life. So you can make a choice to be diligent and hardworking and have a solid work ethic and study while everybody else is partying. Or come to a TED Talk on a Sunday while everybody else is resting. You can make a choice to be fluid in business and pivot with your businesses every week. You can make a choice to include science and technology in your business, even though your staff thinks it's a pain and it costs you money as an entrepreneur. You can make a choice to surround yourself with stronger, harder-hitting people with greater acumen who will elevate you every day to be the best version of yourself, even with humility. That's a choice. I try to make the best critical choices possible. I don't do it all the time. I try. I also try, or I've resolved, never to be complacent and never to be comfortable. Complacency is death. And when you're thinking about choosing, you also choose lifelong learning. I've also chosen to have a growth mindset. Those are all conscious, critical choices that I've made. And that's what's made the difference in my analytical approach to my scientific life. Outside of the box thinking goes along with your critical choices. And those 2 need to be part of the daily life. In fact, I know that I'm challenging, so I challenge myself, I challenge my kids, I challenge my family, I challenge my staff, I challenge my friends, I challenge my mentors, I even challenge my wife, which doesn't work so well sometimes. But I challenge people to dream bigger and push harder than you even imagined could be possible for yourself. Because that's the only way to have great hypotheses, have great outcomes. Norman Peale once said, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. Fantastic, right? And he was right. Along with a lot of perseverance, great determination, hard work. But you have to be prepared to fail a lot. You will fail so much more than you will succeed in entrepreneurship, and you need to be okay with that. But also, I think that you have to remember to celebrate. when your big hypothesis led to the desired conclusion. Sometimes we forget. I had a conversation with Jacqueline earlier on today. Hi. And we talked about how sometimes we forget to celebrate the actual wins that we have in our life. You can't forget to celebrate. And so now I'm going to tell you, I made a critical error. I don't always make the right choices. I made a critical error and I'm going to share it with you. So sometimes I have great ideas that are great for the business and meaningful for patients, but it's just the wrong time to execute. Happens to all of us. I had an idea for an app. And you might be like, it's 2024, apps are everywhere. Yes, but it was the year 2007. It was pre-Twitter. Do you know what Twitter is? X. It was pre-Instagram, pre-TikTok, like pre-everything. And I wanted to have something, again, patient centricity, that the patients could feel supported with. They'd know their cycles, they would know what medications they're taking, they'd know their doctor's appointments, and they'd be able to communicate, give them meaningful information. Well, I made a critical error. I decided to opt out of a store called Apple. Oh, gasp. It was 2007, to be fair. Okay. And I wasn't wrong, because the idea of patient centricity and technology in business are both good choices. And though it felt like I took 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, and 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, eventually I landed precisely where I needed to be. And so what's your take home from this story? Your take home is try to make the best critical choices possible in your everyday life. And you won't always, but like science, the process of learning, the process of experimenting and failing and then trying again, that's where true growth happens. And also, anecdotally, it's in my moments of greatest uncertainty that I've arrived at my greatest successes. So remember that. So keep learning, keep making great critical choices, keep growing, analyze data, even anecdotally, talk to everybody around you about everything you want to do. Because that's where you will be able to push past all boundaries and make possible the impossible. So now let's talk about some of the strategies that I've employed throughout this storytelling moment, about what I have used as strategies for decision making in those big circumstances of critical choices. First, the pro and con list. I love me, the pro and con list. It's a tool that I employ every single day, and it might seem simple, but it's a great way of getting out of your mind what sits there and maybe gets in the way of you having an analytical approach and a scientific approach to decision making. I encourage my patients to do this. Fork in the road moment decisions. These are those beautiful moments in life that present to you disguised as challenges, but really they're tremendous opportunities. You need to talk to people who will walk the walk and talk the talk. You need to do an analysis of your data and your circumstance. If you have a big hypothesis and you're trying to test it out, should I do this? Should I drop a course? Should I stay in it? Should I change my field in my university? Should I change my course? This is something that you need to talk to other people. And don't be afraid to talk to people who are older than you or in a different faculty. It helps, and it makes your analysis of your decision feel confident. And finally, gathering anecdotal data. I've talked about mentors and coaches and other people. Talk to people who are where you want to be. The insights that you will gain will prove invaluable. And using these tactics and strategies, as you use science and you're testing your big hypotheses out in life, it's important to have an approach, but with these tactics, you'll arrive at your best possible outcome. I hope this afternoon I've managed to impart to you how having a scientific approach to life will help to yield the best possible outcomes, hopefully income too, but outcomes. And test your hypothesis. Retool your material and methods if you don't get there. Look at your data. Talk to people around you. Create your pro and con lists. Be ready for your fork in the road moments. And with all that perseverance and grit and determination, all of you will be able to make possible the impossible. So embrace that awkward little human inside of you and welcome risk and discomfort. And then celebrate when you reach your desired outcomes. And remember, if anybody says to you, you can't, or don't do that, or that's impossible, allow it to fuel you. May it forever fuel you to prove them all wrong. And to my grade 7 teacher who told me that my language and communication skills were less than abysmal, I stand here proudly today as myself, Dr. Marjorie Dixon, CEO, founder, medical director of a Nova Fertility group of fertility clinics through Ontario, multi-million-dollar business, woman of inspiration, woman of distinction, one of Canada's top 100 most powerful. My kids don't think so, but whatever. And I make babies all over the world. I stand here proudly, and I say thank you. Thank you so very much for telling me that I